Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to our final panel of this year's South Summit. I feel like it's just kind of blown past us, but we've had some really great conversations. This panel is called Return to Center, featuring Indie Media Arts South. And as I've been mentioning, they've curated a couple of short films that we have featured on Eventive as a part of South Summit this year. You can see them through May 8th. So if you haven't seen them yet, I hope that after this conversation, you'll be running over there to check them out. This curation was done by Curtis Cydney, who I'm going to introduce in just a second before we bring him to the Zoom stage to talk a little bit about Indie Media Arts South too, which he's a member of. It's a great resource that I think every Southern filmmaker or arts organization within the region or outside of it should know about. And so Curtis Cydney sees cinema as the nexus for furthering our understanding of one another, even with our own cultures, and thus works tirelessly as an arts manager, advocate, and filmmaker. He is founder and executive director of Illuminal Theater, a nomadic microcinema that brings Black independent films directly to Black communities through their unique brand of shared audience experiences. Curtis is currently a producer on Stonebreakers, a new documentary about the fight over monuments in the United States, and previously produced Blaxploitation, 100 Years of Blackness in Italian Cinema. He is in pre-production on a short film about Dorothy Dandridge. And as I mentioned before, he's a member of Indie Media Arts South, which he'll be telling us a bit about soon. And with that, I would love to welcome Curtis Cydney to the Zoom stage.
Hey, thank you, Jonathan, for the wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. Always glad when I don't have to read my own introductions because it seems like something. So appreciate that. Thank you all for joining us here today for Return to Center and our discussion with three of our filmmakers of that screening series. It's the first screening series ever that IMAS, Indie Media Arts South, has ever put together, and I was so happy to be able to curate it. But before we get into discussion with the filmmakers, as Jonathan said, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about the organization. Born from a national independent media arts collective created by Sundance Institute and the National Endowment for the Arts, Indie Media Arts South is a regional organization working to support and uplift filmmakers and arts organizations across the Greater South. IMAS currently has around 70 members representing arts organizations, film festivals, and filmmakers across the South. Equity and sustainability for independent filmmakers and the broader independent film media arts field are together our collective focus. So it's really a space for like collaborative thoughts and connective issues around the film and media arts field. Mission-wise, we embark in regular field building meetings that serve as a peer networking forum for continuous knowledge exchange between local, regional, and national stakeholders about filmmaker-friendly policies, best practices, and strategies supporting independent filmmakers and filmmakers across the United States. Alongside our broader field discussions, we provide platforms for members to network, connect, and collaborate, and which this series is the first in hopefully many more of. The field group is free and open to all who are committed to independent film and media arts. So your level of participation in the group is completely determined by you as an individual. So we invite all of those who haven't attended before. I know I do see some familiar names, so some of you have been attended some meetings at Indie Media Arts South, but we invite you all, if you haven't attended before or if it's been a while, to please come back or to please become a member and to share our organization with others so that we can all reach a wide range of organizations, artists, and collectives of all shapes and sizes. And you can see more about Indie Media Arts South at IMA South, that's imasouth.org. And so let's get into discussion. The films you've hopefully watched or will watch after this great filmmaker conversation are part of IMAS's ongoing efforts to help make and create more opportunities and audiences for Southern filmmakers, and to make them more aware of the creativity and versatility of our region, particularly the work of filmmakers from historically underrepresented communities and media. These 5 original films are collected under the theme of Return to Center. So it's Beauty Queens, A Lost Boy, A Cultural Preservationist, A Birth Doula, and an atypical basketball superfan all focus your attention on two equally care meanings of life: care and self-determination. Funding for the series, the next one actually comes up in the summertime, is provided by the Jonathan Logan Family Foundation, which empowers world-changing work, and obvious direct support from our host here at New Orleans Film Society's annual South Summit program. So with that, let's begin today's conversation with our filmmakers. Please welcome Cydney Tucker, I hope I don't mess up your name. I apologize. Please correct me if I do. Selvarajan and Udogwu. Welcome, y'all. I'm going to read your bios too, but I just wanted to say welcome before we start that, okay? Starting with, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Isaac looks like he might be running late, so we'll just start with Cydney and Cy. So apologies, y'all. So Cydney Tucker is a journalist, filmmaker, and freelance photographer currently based in Atlanta, documenting the aftermath of the Black Lives Matter movement and COVID-19 as it disproportionately impacts Black Americans. She has written and produced content for a variety of legacy and digital media organizations, including CBS News, NBC News, Al Jazeera International, and RYOT. Cydney is presently working on a film for the New York Times Presents Hulu FX documentary series, and her current personal projects include producing limited documentary videos and photo series capturing Black joy. Sai Selvarajan is a film director and editor born in Sri Lanka. He grew up in Nigeria and after a brief stint in the UK, moved to Dallas, Texas at the age of 9. A 2001 graduate of the University of Texas at Arlington with a degree in film and graphic design, his previous short film, Blood and Oil, screened in festivals nationwide. Professionally, Sai has worked for the Emmy-winning Hot House Creative as a lead editor and served as senior editor for Brushfire Films under the tutelage of Martin Spirit. In 2015, he wrote and directed the short film, Sugarless Tea. So welcome, Cydney, welcome, Sai, to the conversation.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
It was so fantastic. When we were curating this first edition, and we really had fun just expanding, finding different filmmakers to feature. Actually, a number of filmmakers that have been part of the previous panels for South Summit I thought about, but then it was like, the point of what IMAS does is to focus on people's works who, and not that the filmmakers presented before don't deserve more attention, because they do, and I've enjoyed many of their works over the years, but we wanted to provide even more focus to, some of those filmmakers whose work, is present and out there and making an impact, but, may have not, I don't say fall through the cracks, but, may not, definitely need a little bit more pushing, to the public at large. So we really thank you for allowing your films to be shown as part of this particular screening series. It's really made an impact for us, and hopefully it will help you all expand your audience and everything. So thank you again, just personally on camera for joining us for the series. Tell us a little bit more about why you chose to tell the stories you told in your films. We'll begin with Cydney, and then we'll go to Sai to answer that question.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I think Rebirth was one of those situations where it was a long time coming. I, at the time, was working at Al Jazeera as a producer, working on short docs, and I wanted to create something that surrounded the issue of maternal morbidity as it pertains to Black women. I was just seeing high rates of Black women dying across the country from very preventable, things regarding childbirth, and the uptick, it was happening across the board, and I wasn't really hearing about it as much as I should have been hearing about it. And in the same vein, I'm also a yoga instructor. So my wellness spaces, I was hearing a lot about BIPOC women turning to midwives and doulas. And I was like, well, these two things go hand in hand, right? We're seeing a lot of BIPOC women support other women because they're suffering and they're dying, unfortunately, because of the racism in the medical industrial complex. So I was like, let me pair these two things together. And I started doing more research, and I found out that Georgia has some of the highest rates, and I got COVID or pandemic displaced in Georgia. And so it was the perfect, it just kind of aligned. And I started doing research, looking for doulas. I found Amani, the doula featured in the film, and I just like fell in love with everything that she did, and who she was and how connected to the work she was. She has this like really beautiful ancestral connection, which kind of dives into the historical aspect of how Black women have been doing this work for like, you know, centuries. And it was just very beautiful. And every time she spoke, it was very poetic. So it kind of like unfolded in my mind as I was speaking to her. But that's it.
Thank you, Cydney, for that. And actually, Cy, before you go, before you answer, excuse me, we're going to play a short clip from Cydney's film. So here's a short clip from Rebirth coming up.
Black women are dying in childbirth. They're dying before they give birth. They're dying after their baby's already here. I just want to help people heal. This is our gift to the world.
That's so moving. I'm glad we got to show that clip, and hopefully you all can watch the film in its entirety right here on South Summit's Evented page. So thank you for that. And thank you, Cydney. We're going to come back and talk to you a little bit more about Rebirth after Cy answers that question for us about like why, Cy, did you decide to do this, decide to make They Unlikely Fan?
Sure. So, you know, we came to the United States from Nigeria in 1986, you know, and obviously we were trying to acclimatize to, you know, to the US and stuff. And it was like the late 80s, early 90s is when like basketball started to really, you know, become like this big cultural thing. And obviously it was like the onset of Jordan and all that. And, you know, it's everything that the kids at school talked about. So I started to get into it. And with that, my mom, you know, who was Sri Lankan, you know, she got into it because she saw me spending a lot of time in front of the TV watching this game, you know. And so I think it was a bonding thing for us. And then it was also a magical time for basketball, you know, in general, as it was becoming more mainstream. And obviously the phenomenon of Michael Jordan, you know, was really, you know, it took hold of like the whole world, right? So I kind of grew up with that and just kind of took it for granted, you know, and then my mom and I just became this huge basketball, you know, family and fans. And then as we got older and I saw my friends and their moms and stuff were completely, you know, not into basketball. And then when they would come over and see, you know, how, you know, avid a fan she was, they'd be like, yo, this is crazy, you know? And so it wasn't until like, you know, later that I was like, I should document this as a story, you know, because there aren't a lot of like 78-year-old Sri Lankan women who are that big a fan of the NBA, you know, and the NBA is this like billion-dollar industry and their target market and their fans are like, you know, there's all these people that are influenced and, but, you know, like the NBA has a very, you know, strong, you know, they go after a certain group of people in their marketing and their reach, right? And there's all these other unlikely fans that's not just her, but, you know, that make up their fan base. So I wanted to tell the story from the outside in, you know, and as I got older, I like realized how much basketball was part of me and my DNA and how, you know, it's not, you know, when you're a kid, you just go, okay, yeah, I think about it every day, but it's not a big deal, right? There's all this other stuff. And then as you get older, you go, you know, this is a thing, you know, it has shaped me. It has, you know, given me all these things. So as the pandemic struck, you know, and everything got shut down, you know, I was thinking about doing something to stay busy and moving, you know, and then I thought, you know, I was like, I should do this story about my mom because also she was 78 years old, you know, she's as, you know, she has asthma, she's a cancer survivor. So she was very high risk, and you're going through all these things of like, I might lose her. So I was like, I need to tell this story now. And so, if you watch the film, we shot her in her garage, from 10 feet away. It was a very, with long lenses and whatnot. But, she was a good sport, and it gave us something to do, during this time. And, I spent the summer editing it. And then, in the fall, we submitted to South by and got in. And then it got really, moving, and that's when, we got a ton of people watching it. And it went from this thing, if I'm just going to tell the story about my mom that may, I might just show at Christmas or something, to my family, to then it being in South by Southwest and getting all these DMs and messages from people that are like really feeling it, and and I kept saying, this is a love story, and so that's where it came from. And yeah, so yeah.
Thank you. And I guess let's now watch a clip from
Sure.
The Unlikely Fan.
My dream team would be Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dirk Nowitzki, Stephen Curry, and Kobe Bryant.
Thank y'all for that clip. Yeah, Jessica, it is adorable. Jessica saying that in the chat, and your mom is so adorable. It's ridiculous how adorable she is. But I feel like there's so much, even with your two films, although in a large way, all the films we showed in this series are connected. But with your film Cydney and with your film Cy, like there's that whole real, and you just said it, Cy, there's that really that love is just so apparent in how both of your characters, your main subjects, move through the world, and I think that's what really captured me. Like with Cydney, with your film, and come back to you for a second. I mean, I got really, truly emotional watching your film. I mean, it's like I hope that other audiences end up feeling that way too, because it's just the devotion that she has for her work, and in ensuring that these Black lives come through to the world, and that these mothers survive, the whole nine, right? The amazing work that doulas do that's underrated. And I know a number of doulas too, but it's the beautiful thing about cinema and film is just seeing it, how their work just unfolds. So can you just share a little bit more about us with, I guess, a little bit more about the creative process of you told us about why you chose to do it, but like maybe particularly like why you chose this particular person to cover?
Yeah, I could talk about Amani all day. I have
Okay.
like fangirl over her.
That's good.
She's one of those people that like once you meet her, you're so invested and you're so connected to her work, because you can see that she embodies everything that she does, right? So she's a very spiritual person. As it's funny, because as I started to interview her and we sat down, we were just talking, and she was telling me like where she was from, and she has this very rich like familial history. She's from Savannah, Georgia originally. She comes from the Gullah Geechee people, which is like a whole other beautiful thing. And she was telling me about, this ancestral work that she felt like she just like naturally fell into. Like she was basically during the pandemic and before the pandemic, she was working as a social worker. And she had always been drawn to becoming a doula, but never quite like had the oomph to take it up. And then once the pandemic hit, she's like, no, I'm really going to do this work. And she started at the same time to kind of find out about her family, and found out that her grandmother and her great aunt were both like the birth care workers in their communities. And her great aunt was actually one of the first certified midwives like in the country. And a Black woman, it's like a huge deal. And there's a statue like erected in her name in Savannah. And once I found all this out, I was like, oh my God, this could be so much longer. But I was like on task, gotta stay on task. But yeah, she's just like, you know, she's one of those people, like when she speaks, she just naturally speaks about her work and what she does so poetically. And so when I first spoke with her, like over the phone, I started getting these like this like imagery, and she was like, you know what, just like come by. And that's when I first, you know, this is going to originally be like a photo essay, because I didn't originally have like grant funding to make it into a video thing, and I had my camera, so I was like, I'm just going to make it like a photo essay about this woman. And you know, while I was there with her, I started seeing like all this like imagery come at me, and she's very like much like a Mother Earth like figure, because she's very grounded and she's very connected, and she talks about like bringing in all of these indigenous practices and like honoring them as well. So it's like not an appropriative thing, but it's like, this comes from, you know, this comes from this African culture. And this comes from, you know, ancient Chinese medicine. And like, she's aware of where they come from, and she's done her research, and she talks about how integral they are in each step of the birth process. And as she was just walking me through it, I was like, man, I really see these like elements of nature coming together while you're doing this, and like this kind of just like circle of life, like, you know, the environment around us, and these ebbs and flows. And so I was like, man, I really just kind of want to see you in nature talking about what you do, and then like having that intertwined in a verite style with you know, the scenes of like what you do with your clients, like the activities that you do. And she injects a lot of mindfulness practices into her practice. I think each doula kind of has their own kind of way of crafting what they're going to make available for their clients. But for her, it's, you know, it's like belly binding, which is an ancient Chinese medicine practice, which kind of really keeps everything intact, both before and after the mother gives birth. There's she uses mindfulness techniques and talks to mothers about kind of like building this like maze of sorts in their minds, and walks them through this kind of acupuncture-esque technique of like holding ice on their wrists, and like basically walking them to the edge of their like uncomfortability or pain threshold, and teaching them how to use breath work and techniques like that to kind of get them in the mindset of where they can kind of navigate themselves through this uncomfortability, and how the birth process is like a maze, and that at the end, it's just like when you're in it, it's just like you're lost, and it's like no one else but you in this maze. And then as you go through, like at the end is your baby, and so you're just like working towards like finding the end. And she just like, I'm not doing it justice, but when she speaks, like you'll hear it in the film, like she talks like that regularly. Like you'll be like, Amani, what's up? And she's like, Grand Rising, Cydney. Did it like, it's just so beautiful. And I'm like, Amani, who are you? So I was like, literally, all I have to do is hold the camera up to you and let you do your work. And like, that's it. And I think that's what really kind of drove me to her. And then obviously there were things that were kind of out of my control, which I'll get into later, but like, that's just the filming process, but that was it.
Wow. I think you did that justice, honestly. I hear what you're saying. She's, I guess, not out of this world. She's very much in the world, but she's larger than life, actually, right? You know, which is, you know, pun not intended, but yeah, so that's fantastic. I mean, and same with your mom, Sai, in a similar way as just being really larger than life. There's so many things like, I'm going to personalize a little again. But I lost my mom last year, and I always said I was going to start documenting so many things with my elders and such. And, you know, as a filmmaker, it's a lot easier for us to do, and a lot of us still really drop the ball in it. So first of all, whenever I see a film where someone does so, especially in such a unique way, you know, like, you know, please, you know, that's been, it's so wonderful and beautiful to see. So thank you, first of all, for making it and telling her story. Yeah, I mean, you've already kind of spoken it, but she's just so unique and beautiful, and adorable. All those positive adjectives with her. I guess my main question for you, and Isaac is here now, so we're going to bring him on in a second after you answer. But you know, it's weird. Like it's the beautiful thing also about your film is you really connected history really well, and it's in a pretty short time. You did a fantastic job of connecting the history of the 90s, the NBA, how the NBA exploded in the 90s, with your personal family history and your mom's history. You spoke about it a little bit, but can you expand maybe a little bit more just on probably why, I know Dallas, Dirk Nowitzki, those connections and all, but why she's probably still such a super fan that she is.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think it's, when we fell in love with the sport, we like really fell in love with, what makes basketball so like magical, and it's like, I think it's the players, but it's also like the rhythm of the game and the emotional, because it's a sport where there's no helmets and you can see the emotion, body language and all that, and I think it's like theater like in front of you, right? And so I think after Michael Jordan, after Nowitzki, retired, all that, there's still all that is always there, and I think it doesn't matter, and then, like Steph came up and she like fell in love with Steph Curry. So I think there's always somebody comes along and you fall in love with that, but then the game is always the game. And I think, it's, there's strategy and all that. So I think it's all like universal too, there's like teamwork and love and, there's anger and there's like jealousies and all this, all like wrapped in this game. And I think we all like respond to that, and I think historically, we came in at a really great time. We got in on the ground floor of Michael Jordan and rode that into Nowitzki, and now we're kind of into Steph and Luka and all this other stuff. So it feels like an endless wave, but it's like we're just gonna like ride it. And yeah, I mean, I think as now you see like the NBA, especially culturally, it has such a great impact, and you have these like ambassadors like LeBron, who you can look to past the game, you know what I mean? And so I think it's like, it's part of our history, but it's also like part of the country and the world's history, because of its impact.
Yeah, kind of like just all of us growing together within this sport, right?
Yeah.
So?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and it's like, as a teen, when I got into it, had no idea how, impactful it would be, and all the things that I feel like even now, even with like rap music and stuff, we just took it for like granted, and like now it's this huge thing in our lives and in the world, and I think it was like a great time to really get in on all this stuff, and it's just like impacted and really like shaped everybody's life, so yeah.
Thank you for that. And we're going to get into the whole Southern experience and Southern stories a bit more. But I want to bring on Isaac Udogwu. Thank you, Isaac, for joining us and for allowing us to show your film, Black Boy Meets World, as part of the IMAS screening series. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honestly honored to be a part of a group of filmmakers. As y'all, excuse me for being late. A lot going on this side. But I'm just grateful to be here. Very hearing Cydney and Cy, how you speak about your films, it warms me up a lot. It's a beautiful thing to see, and just being able to share this film with everybody else is very important. Thank you, Curtis, for having me on here as well.
Well, I've been wanting to show your film for almost 2 years now, and I'm glad this is a great platform for us to be able to share your unique work for your vision and your voice out of here in South Carolina, where we both are, with the world. So I'm just going to read a quick introduction for you, and then I'm going to get into a very specific question for you as well. So just so the world understands a little bit more about who you are. And thank you, Ronnie, for making up Isaac as well. One of our fellow South Carolinian, Columbia area filmmakers. Isaac Udogwu is a Nigerian-American digital artist and martial artist that creates worlds that allows people of the African diaspora to be fully liberated and just simply exist as humans, using Afrofuturism as a means to create these worlds. Because as a friend once told him, Afrofuturism is simply Black people existing in the future. It's a great quote. And audience, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch this fantastic animated film, fantastic film period, please check it out. as soon as we finish this conversation. So, Isaac, in Black Boy Meets World, you explored a dreamscape, but also like in a lot of ways, the past and the future as well. And the boy in it, he's examined his legacy, his destiny. Can you tell us more about, is this like a personal story for you or for someone you know, or is it just totally imagination?
Very much personal, mixed with imagination. For me, it's speaking to my inner child. Growing up and I was born in Nigeria. I was brought to the States when I was 9 months old. So there's no real memory of Nigeria, of what's called home to me by my parents and my siblings. So growing up in a Nigerian household in the South, I would see glimpses of it. I would get references and things like that, but I never really knew. So when I finally went back to Nigeria in 2016, it was an interesting understanding. It was like, okay, I had this revelation that when I'm in Nigeria, I'm American, right? But when I'm in America, I'm Nigerian. And just teetering between those two things was very interesting. And it made me want to learn so much more about Nigeria. And it made me love my Black Southern culture a lot more. Like just seeing the parallels between the two is like, of course, we'll see all these similarities between Nigeria, West Africa and the Black South, you know? This is where we were brought to when we were enslaved. And it was just that the idea of Sankofa, going back and getting that info from past cultures and my homeland, and bringing it to what I have now and creating this life that I want to live, or this future that I want to see that everybody that looks like me can enjoy and experience. Yeah, so yeah, it was very personal. Very much personal. It was just, me talking to myself and expressing that with everybody else.
I love what you just said about creating this life you want to live. That's I think a huge part of why so many people gravitate towards art and film as an art in that form too. So I thank you for giving us that really beautiful insight into your film. Alongside that, you actually gave us a really great segue into my next question. And that is, what is your film, or what is any film that you want to work on or that you have worked on? Like, what does being a Southern story mean to you all? Is it about community? Is it about the legacies, as you just spoke about, Isaac? What is it? And we can start with you and then go to Cy and then Cydney to answer that.
So for me, community is definitely probably number one, if not number one, number two. And then the cultural experience, community is number one, because I'm gonna start going back to community as I realize community is probably number one. Just that oneness. As I've been exploring metaphysics and spirituality and just collective consciousness, it's that community, that oneness that I want to create, that I feel like we've had before, but the birth of ego and in the idea of the individual starts to pull that away. So I want to bring that back with my work. I want to create connections and just, community is the ultimate goal with my work, and that's what I love. That's what I love about the South. We're a big community. We family everywhere. Everybody your cousin, everybody your sister, everybody your brother. You know, that's why I feel like it's no coincidence that when I was first brought to the States, I was in Denver, Colorado, that we migrated to the South. It's no coincidence to me. And my girlfriend now, her family is from Charleston, and that is no coincidence to me either. The Gullah Geechee, there's so many ties, and just the way the community works with each other, it's very important, and I love to illustrate that in my work as well.
Thank you for that. Thank you. What did I say was next? Cydney, I think. Yeah.
It was definitely Cy. I was still brimming with like my response. There's so much there. Isaac, I was like snapping, clapping in my head while you're talking. Yeah, I would definitely say community. It's interesting because I'm not originally from the South. Like I grew up in Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl till I die. But you know, I went to college here. I went to Spelman, and I think I dove into the rich, you know, historical context of the South and its importance, especially to like Black Americans, like in this country. My family's Caribbean and like Middle Eastern, so like I basically like I feel like being at Spelman like instilled this appreciation in me for the South and the South struggles, and also like the sense of community. And not to say that like, you know, up north like we don't have community. We do, like we definitely do have our like boroughs, and we have our, you know, our old people that sit on the stoop and gossip and all that stuff. Like we love that. But I think it is very different here in the South. And there is this very much like this richness that starts at the foundation, right? It starts in the soil, right? It like really gives you a sense of how many people put, you know, their hands and their feet in the soil to literally build the foundation of this country, right? Like there's something that you can't remove yourself, and community is naturally just injected into the DNA of all of that. So you can't but help like you step out your front door and you can't help but be in just engrossed in community, right? Even if you like the people at the grocery stores are going to talk to you, like everyone's going to ask you how you're doing, like people can tell when you're upset, like. And I think for me, I think there's also what I try to capture in my work is this intersectionality, not just of the like oppressions of people of color in the South, but also the intersectionalities of our contributions to history and our joy. And that's what I try to tap into. Like, I think there's a lot that people forget. Like people want to forget about the South until there's something big that happens here. And it's like, we're all like, we've been here this whole time, like kind of attitude. Like, but I feel like people just kind of lose sight of what's here. And there's so much here, and it's just so beautiful. And it's just like I was saying kind of with Amani and Rebirth, like I think as a videographer, you're like really blessed to be in the South, because it really is just a matter of like holding a camera up and like letting things just unfold in front of you, because there's just so much richness here.
Thank you, Cydney. And Cy, you can answer that question as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, you know, it's also community is like the thing, you know, especially when we came here, we like came as immigrants. And I think, you know, we were like taken in with open arms, you know, people, like you said, like when you go to the grocery store and you're in line, they'll turn and talk to you and ask you something about the t-shirt you have on or whatever. And it was just, there's a certain sense of community and friendship, I think, that's in the South that as I've traveled and, you know, as I got older and traveled around, you don't see in other parts of the country. And not to knock on that or whatever, but I can just, it's just so, it feels like home, you know, and just there's like this sense of like hard work, and like we're gonna, you know, people are gonna overlook us, so we're gonna like, you know, we're gonna like grab their attention. There's also like this boldness in the South, you know what I mean? Like people are, there's pride, there's boldness, there's humility, and it's all like mixed in, right? You know, and I feel like we're like kind of like these underdogs, but you know, we still have stories to tell. We have culture, and every state I feel like has a different look and a feel, you know. And there's like when you travel, you know, if you start in Texas and you go through, you know, there's so much to see, and I feel like, yeah, it does get overlooked, you know. And so I think, but yeah, to me, I feel like with Texas and the South, you know, I feel like there's community and friendship. You know, I feel like I can talk to like anyone who's from the South, you know, because like I feel like we all have something in common, you know. So yeah.
You know, it's funny though, alongside that, all of you said something very interesting in that, and you know, this whole series is also about debunking stereotypes about, you know, what the South is, what Southern filmmakers' legacies are, all those things. But one thing that I think people don't talk about often enough regarding the South is that people tend to think that people leave the South as opposed to travel to the South to live, you know? And even though people have been leaving the Northeast and other parts of the country a lot more to come back south to or Chicago, those areas. So like first migration, people still don't kind of think of the South as a place where people travel to and live to with intention, whether it's in college, you decided to stay, or with your family side is where you plan to immigrate to, and same thing with yours, Isaac, right? Like intentionally did is what I'm saying. People don't regard that enough, and don't regard, I guess, even the immigrant voice as a voice of the South as well. And that's not obviously not taking anything away from Black American filmmakers or Black American filmmakers born and raised in the South. And two of our other filmmakers are those who are not on this panel. So we have Gabrielle Carter and Jasmine McClaskill, whose films are also part of the series that you should definitely check out too. But can y'all talk a tiny bit more about just the experience of Sai, I guess you kind of spoke about it already, but the experience of not being from here, but telling stories that you feel are still in their own way unique to the Southern experience, and to even especially with the theme of this whole entire South Summit, the legacies of the South. Any of you can answer that. Is it too much? Go ahead, Sai. You look like you want to say something.
Sure. No, I mean, I think there's a ton of stories here that go untold, and I think they're begging to be told, and I think people kind of overlook them and all that, and I think there's just so much history here, and I think as a filmmaker, I'm always on the hunt for that, and so I think there's a short film I'm working on right now, and there's a town 2.5 hours from Dallas. It's called Gilmer, Texas, and it's 5,000 people, and there's a skate shop there for skateboarding, and I found it on Instagram, and I was like, why is there a skate shop in a town of 5,000, and then I started to do more research, and it just seems like a really cool idea, and so I've been talking to them to go down there and do a short about it, and it's just stories like that, to me are really interesting, and it's a very eclectic group of people there that are just into skateboarding, and they're trying to help the youth in this town who are it's a small town, and you can either go, there's not a ton of options, right, and so it's stories like that. I think you're only going to find, it's just, to me, it was really interesting that there's a skateboarding shop in a small town in Texas, you know what I mean? And so you don't think of, when you think of skateboarding, you think of LA, California, or something like that, and so stuff like that to me is super interesting. And I think they're all the South is just riddled with those stories, where they're just begging to be told, because people just assume small town in Texas, yeah, nobody skates in that town, right? So it's so that's just an example, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd also add on to that, it's a sense of resiliency that we talked about, right? So it's I think the South is very much it embodies a lot when it comes to where we are as a society as a whole, in terms of the US, right? Where we are in terms of our infrastructure and what we invest in and what we divest in. And as much as we see, it's kind of going back to that idea of the soil, right? Because the South was the foundational point of the country and what built the rest of the country, very much so it's the same situation where you can see the cracks in the foundation in the South very easily, right? When we're talking about lack of access to healthcare, when we're talking about the opioid crisis, when we're talking about all these things. And so I think it's really fascinating to kind of hone in on those stories, but hone in more so on the resiliency, right, of those communities and of the organizers and the locals that are doing more than the government is doing, right? I know in Georgia and the rest of the South, we have all these issues with rural hospital closures, right, for example, and we have all these individuals who are literally creating their own private ambulances to help save lives. And all this stuff is intersectional, right? We're talking about reproductive, rollbacks right now with Roe versus Wade. who are the people most impacted? Women of color. Who are the people like within that subsect? Black women. Black women have the highest maternal morbidity rates in the South, right? So like all these things are interconnected, but it's also the stories of joy, and also like who is on the ground like doing something about it, and like how are they like coming together to do it. And like that's the fascinating what's most fascinating to me is like these mini kind of revolutionary moments that people have just kind of slept on.
Thank you for that. It's funny because I was planning to ask you all about future projects that you're working on. So Sai, you anticipated that, and Cydney, if you can, and we have more questions, but since we're talking about that, can y'all talk about like what other type of, or can you talk about what other type of story from the South that you might be developing, if you can talk about that now? Cydney, that's for you. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. No, Sai, I'm really excited. I skate, so I'm really excited about your skate film.
Cool.
I think so. For me, I actually, Zanshe knows this. I was just in New Orleans. I lived there for a couple months. I love New Orleans. I'm planning on coming back sometime soon. I had moved there to like embed myself in this beautiful organization called House of Tulip, which is run and founded by 2 Black trans women who have created the first housing refuge in the state of Louisiana for trans and non-binary folks. And I did this because, again, this was also kind of like my brainchild from, journalism brain. When I was at Al Jazeera, I had been seeing, a lot of reports on Black trans women dying and trans individuals across the country, but it wasn't being reported. Like it's happening at epidemic proportions and it's not being reported as such. And actually you hardly hear about it. And so I was like, again, whenever I'm reporting on something, it's never just like, okay, let's focus on like the trauma porn of it all. Like, let's just show like everyone that's dying, whatever. It's about like what's going on the ground, like who are the individuals being directly impacted and what are they doing about it, right? The resiliency of it all. So I found House of Tulip and I was just so amazed by these women and everything that they were doing to provide for their community, like from the ground up. Like, they started this really incredible, it started as a kind of a GoFundMe kind of campaign where they were trying to give money to the community because a lot of trans and non-binary folks were impacted once all of the businesses shut down during the pandemic. And then they saw that within that need that there were mostly a lot of people, who were suffering from lack of housing, like a housing shortage. And so they were like, how can we like not only provide, but make sure that people are not just surviving, but thriving. And so they not only have permanent housing where it's like, it's different from housing across the country that's provided for, people who are housing insecure, where they might be like, oh, well, in X amount of days, like you need to prove that you tried to get a job or you need to prove all these things, right? It's designed to be permanent so people don't have to leave. And it's designed to build community so that they have safe spaces to be themselves and just like build community and love and work. And it's just really beautiful. And so it was really important to me because I identify as like a queer Black woman, but I'm not trans at the end of the day. So I was like, I want to make sure that I am doing the story authentically and that I'm coming from a space where I've done not only my research, but I've embedded myself with the community. I've gotten to know them and what, they're striving for and what they want for the future, and just kind of am a fly on the wall as they like pursue that. And so it was really kind of a beautiful moment. And I was able to one of the founders ran for city council. She was the first openly Black trans woman to run for city council in New Orleans. That was really exciting. And everyone in that community is just amazing. And I'm just so appreciative. And that's what I'm working on right now. It's a short. It's being funded by Sundance and IDA, and I'm really excited about it coming together, working with all the local New Orleans folks. And yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. So excited to share that when it comes out.
That is exciting. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing that. And hopefully Isaac can join us back in a minute. But it's funny. So what you've all spoken about actually falls literally right into the theme of how we collected your films, and that's under the theme of return to center. That's that common theme about, you know, centering care, centering self-determination in multiple forms. So alongside that, then, coming back to you, Cy, you know, we heard all about your film already, but what is it about, like, your style as a filmmaker, or even like your mode or your care of, or your mode of operations or your mode of care that allows you to like really center care and center these types of self-determination in all your respective works, whether it's past works you've done, including Unlikely Fan, or future works?
Sure. Well, I think it's always something personal, you know. I think that's where I kind of start, you know, because it has to be a thing that you know, that I'm interested in, and that can really, you know, just be, it keeps me honest, right? You know, and I think so that's the thing, is like I have to really be involved and into it, and not just make a film to make a film, you know. And so I think, yeah, I think it's just it has to like resonate personally, like with me, you know. And if you watch my other stuff, they're all like personal in some way, you know. And I think for me, that way, like when I share it with the world, I know that it's coming from a place of like honesty, and not like, I mean, it's entertainment, you know, but it's also, it's not just you know, there'll be some substance for sure, you know. So yeah.
I love what you said there, like honesty, but then I guess what I'll add to that is also like a genuineness then alongside that honesty, right? Would you say, right?
For sure.
Okay, so when it just comes from a personal place, for you making it personal, rather, I should say, then, really just provides us as an audience to show how much you do actually care, but to show, I guess, how honest and genuine your work is. And it does come off that way, so thank you for that.
Cool.
Yeah. What about you, Cydney?
I would also say it's definitely that kind of personal connection to something. I think again, like I came to doc from a journalism background. So
Yeah.
I've always been one, I feel like it's like my journalism experience coupled by like the radicalism that was injected into me at Spelman. It's kind of like where my mindset is when I'm looking at what I cover. So it's usually just like, it's those underdog stories, and it's the stories of resilience. It's the stories about communities that are like, you know, pushing to make the world better, right? Put everyone who's like pushing to make the world a better place. And I think that's kind of like where everything breaks down, or it's like the cracks in the foundation that I was talking about earlier, right? Like issues that are not being addressed in like, you know, the national or international media, but that are happening very frequently. I think a lot of that, you know, in the past has come from a space of trauma. But again, like I try to always showcase like what someone's doing. And I think if I'm looking back at my work, and I've assessed it recently, is that the pillars are always Black women. Like Black women are always saving the day. And I think I'm just a major champion of Black women in like every community. And it's always just like, I think that's kind of like the foundation of all of my films. And I'm looking back at that now. And I just think, it's just so, it's so beautiful. And that's just kind of like the commonality for me. But yeah, that's it.
That's really interesting though. Like, it's like when you mature as a filmmaker, like how you see all the commonalities that you created, you know. And that's why I asked that question, because it's, in a lot of ways, yes, it is intentional, but it's also from the core of who you are, right? And so that really informs how you go about the world, how you even approach a subject, right? How you even approach a filmmaking subject, whether it's, you know, purely documentary, or, you know, if any of you do narratives at any point, you know, if they're narrative form. So and let's talk a little bit more about that. And we will be taking questions soon, everyone. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat for our filmmakers, and we'll definitely get to them. So and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think both of you mostly focus on documentary form, right? Or I'm not sure if you go back and forth. But since the focus kind of is on documentary, other than just like the finding the truth and the resiliency that you spoke about, especially Cydney, what is it about documentary that, what really attracted you to documentary? I guess Cydney, with you, it is the journalism background. But is there anything else that brought you there? And this is actually, Sai, you can answer that first, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think with docu stuff, you know, it's about people and it's about truth and it's about story, you know, and I feel like the story is there and you just have to like tell it in a way, right? So I think, I don't know, I'm just really attracted to docu because I feel like, you know, I'm one of those people that feel like real life is way more interesting than fiction, but, you know, but also I feel like, yeah, there's all these like marginalized stories or underrepresented stories that like need to be told, you know, and that's what also like attracts me to it, you know, there's like this whole like underdog aspect of it, you know, and then there's like, you know, with Unlikely Fan, I said like, you know, it's just a love story and almost like basketball is like the Trojan horse that, you know, it's really, and like, as I made that film, I kept asking like, you know, does this move the love story ahead? You know, it was always, if I was at a crossroads, I'd say, you know, I'd go back and go, you know, this is a love story. And then it would help me make a choice, you know? So I think, and not every doc is that, you know, but I think every doc can be about a certain thing that's like universal that people can like vibe with, you know? So I think the reason why, you know, people were able to really connect with this one is that, you know, it's about love, you know what I mean? And so I think, again, with doc, you know, that really like draws me in. It's like, what's the like universal umbrella that we can like hang on this film, you know? Is it like, again, with this skateboard thing I'm doing, you know, I'm trying to figure that out, you know, what is it like? Why did this guy go there and start this store, you know, and is it the love of skateboarding? What is it, you know? So I think it's asking those questions, answering them, and then like making a film about it, you know, so.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say coming from like the journalism side, I feel like, you know, I was covering breaking news for a long time, for a while, and a lot of it was just kind of, you know, like a lot of helicoptering in, and it's something that I just didn't really agree with. At the end of the day, I just didn't like this idea of people dropping into a community and being like, we know everything about you. and reporting it as fact when they've been there for like less than 24 hours. And I think, you know, I kind of fell in love with long form and being able to really embed myself into a community, or being able to like cultivate a story from the ground up. Like when I was at Dateline, which is like obviously murder mystery, not a normal case, but it was just this idea that I was able to really kind of grow with a story and grow with participants and like learn about them, and also like get a window into their lives, right? And allow them to kind of dictate and guide me, instead of the reverse where I'm kind of just like packaging something to like put it in front of someone for like whatever news hour for the day. And I think it's also a space where I learned to kind of turn off and start to think about decolonializing my reporting and my producing and my directing, and having the freedom to do such, because I think coming from a journalist space, like there's a lot of things that are beat into you that are very like white supremacist cultures, like, you know, that have to do with like, you know, objectivity and like leaving your identity at the door. And it's like, that's cute, but I'm a Black woman, I'm a Black queer woman, can't do that at the end of the day. And also it makes me a better storyteller. So like, I'm not doing that. And I love that doc gives you the freedom to do that. And I love that it allows you to kind of just literally, I hate that this term gets used so often, but it's so true, like literally be a fly on the wall. But I think I really love now that like literally during the pandemic, I've been hearing more conversations about being a conscious fly on the wall, more like, and being someone who like leaves as little footprint as possible when it comes to like re-traumatizing individuals. And again, I think this comes back to me being a Black women being like superheroes and like saving people, but like thinking about these things and making sure that I'm not re-traumatizing individuals or like, and that I'm like uplifting them and doing as little harm as possible. So it's kind of like, it's like using all these tools, but also leaving things at the door. And like, that's why I really love Doc, because it's kind of like a choose your own adventure boot camp every day.
That's a really great way to think about entering the documentary field, is choose your own adventure boot camp. I love that. I love that. That's really great. Isaac, are you back with us? Because I do have a question for you before we close out and take questions from the audience.
Yes, just one moment. I'm trying to get my kids together. Sorry.
Okay, no, totally understood. And that's a whole nother. We were talking about care, and that's a whole nother level of care that is I don't want to say underrated. Oh, there we go. See.
Let me turn my camera back on.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, so I was just asking the question about with your filmmaking, because our theme is return to center, and that's what kind of connects all of your films that we chose. And so with that, we're talking about like how that under the theme centers care and self-determination, like in multiple forms and all together. So I was asking, and I'm asking you now, what is it about like your filmmaking style, or even just the way you operate as a person, that allows you to like really and truly like center care and center self-determination in your work and in your art and such?
Yeah, honestly, it is something that I struggle with, but it's something that I'm determined to achieve or make sure that I'm aware of and taking care of myself and those around me whenever I'm doing the work. And the ideas that and beliefs that I build off of when I'm creating is that returning to center, making sure that things are taken care of, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, the inside, outside, the sound body, sound mind idea. And not even just within the physical realm, but and making sure that I instill that into my kids as well. Just that, just the idea of making sure you're taking care of yourself, because a lot of us neglect it, especially within our community. We neglect it. It's this this thing of perseverance of having to be resilient at all times, but not allowing ourselves to be solved. But it's something I'm learning to do with myself and my kids. And it's something that I love to explore in my work as well. Just that softness and gentle approach, and forgiving and accepting
That's
things
very
as
real.
they are.
Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah.
How does that work for you as a digital artist? Because that's seems to be, from what I've seen, your primary medium, right? So how does it work as someone whose work is primarily like animation and mostly or purely digital?
So for me, it's a good question. I like the digital realm is because I grew up playing video games, and I've always wanted to create things that these outwardly ideas, but for me, I get to put things in there that I always wanted to see. I don't have to see a Black character who's subhuman and without emotions or feelings. I can put that in my work now. I can take all those things that I grew up seeing and put everything that I felt was missing. So I can give us more dimensions in that realm. I like to. That's what I like to do with my work. I like to we are complex people as humans. We are complex people as Black people. We are complex people being in the South. So being able to create those worlds that I felt like, those things about us that I felt like were missing a lot in sci-fi and supernatural and fantasy work, I'm able to do that with my work. So bringing in that the healing aspect of our cultures. There's a lot of healing. There's a lot of how we deal with death, the different roles that we play as people. In I believe Daniel Clark or David Clark's The book, where he speaks about the voyage from Africa to the U.S. To the Americas. We have the empaths, the jokesters, the warriors, the fighters, and the bearers, and just I want to bring all that complexity and all of those things that we have of ourselves that we don't get to see, and not just be the mammies, the Uncle Toms, and all. I'm tired of seeing stories like that, and I want to tell a story. Like, I want to give. It's not the only thing that we're not just that. There's so much more to us. There's so much more. Like, as a people, not even just as Black Americans. There's so much more to us.
Thank you for that. And that's a great way to kind of, I don't want to say end, but to transition to audience questions. And I say that because it's, it actually comes back to the work that I do as an exhibitor as well. It's really just about helping people imagine possible futures. That's why we put these films out there. That's why we create, and we, in my case, exhibit as well, because we want people to be exposed to these futures that don't always show up in major media, about Southerners, about Black folks, about people from all around the world that just, don't exist. You're not going to easily find on a Netflix or wherever else, And so it's up to us to keep making those things and to keep putting those worlds and those features out there for people to know that they exist and be a part of. So yeah, that's beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you
for those very wonderful and personal sentiments about your work and your art and your children. So Zondache, I think we can go to audience questions now, if that's cool.
Yeah, that's perfect. So we do have a little bit of time for audience questions, and I'll give everyone a moment if you want to go ahead and add those into the chat. And while we're waiting, I do have one to sort of get us started. So I'm really drawn to the title of this panel, Return to Center, which you all have spoken about a bit. And I really like this idea of returning to some part of yourself. And as filmmakers, we're so close to the work that we do. I'm curious, is there anything that these respective projects has revealed to you about yourselves on some deeper level? And that's for anyone to start with, whoever would like.
For me, it's revealed to me a lot of things that I was lacking and a lot of things that I already knew, or things that confirmed for me. It was like, it taught me a lot. Like, it let me know that I knew some things, and it let me know that I didn't know a lot. But it gave me that space to reach even further inside, instead of outwardly, to get to know more. And yeah, and it also gave me the insight. This is why I put the main part of the dream sequence in a space thing, just that infinite possibilities of what I can learn and grow about.
It's beautiful. Anyone else want to chime in on that? And if it hasn't, that's fine too.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, I really found just how powerful like the whole process of making a film is, especially during the pandemic. Making this happy film, this film about love, while everything felt really dark, it gave me this offset, and it really did center me, because at the same time, we're trying to stay alive and stay healthy. And then, and then George Floyd happened. And then, we were having to have these tough conversations with my kids. And, we were marching in Dallas, but then I would come home and cut this film. And it was like this dichotomy. It was like, part of me was like, what am I doing? Like, the world is ending, but then I just kept going, and it gave me this thing to like center myself and then to share this, like this film. I think we were at one film festival and someone called it like a packet of happiness, and I really loved that, because I was like, in this dark time, we were able to like make something that made people happy, and then so I think it really showed me like the power of film. It's bigger than us, and we're just like, I'm just a cog in the filmmaking machine, you know what I mean? Even though people say, oh, director or whatever, but it's like I was actually, I felt lucky to be able to like do this film and share it, and make people smile and laugh while we were, as the country and a world, in a really dark spot, so.
It's beautiful.
Love that. Yeah, so I completely agree. It does very much feel like very spiritual in a way. It is almost like an act of service, I would say. Like I definitely feel like I'm always grateful to be in community with the folks that I film with, and grateful for them letting me into their communities and sharing their worlds with me and sharing their lives with me, such intimate moments. And I like literally took the words out of my mouth. I think what really attracted me to Rebirth, one, it was like the first kind of my first project that was completely like my own. Like I had always done things like one woman band when I was at Al Jazeera and all these other places, and like they were my own, but this was like no one else attached to it my own, right? So I didn't have like a white executive producer being like, oh, but we can't do this, or like take this out, like it was literally, I had full artistic freedom. And I think that in itself was a very like spiritual reaction in me. And I was really drawn to it similarly because I had just left a newsroom where I was the only Black producer, and I was cutting all of the, content about Black Lives Matter. And it was like, in the span of like X amount of months, it was like Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, like all these things back to back. And being the only person who's like editing those and producing those and like just seeing them nonstop, I think there was this thirst in me, similar to Cy, of like wanting to see the complete opposite of that, which was like Black life and joy. And so I felt like Rebirth, yes, while it like highlights this, very traumatic situation that's going on across our country, it's also showing what people are doing to combat that and to bring Black life into the world. And I thought there was something so powerful about that. So just being like adjacently, like even proximity of that and like Black births was just like really magical. And I felt very touched to just be in those spaces, because birthing spaces are just so they're so spiritual in themselves and otherworldly, but you can't help but like get the vibrations off of that. Sorry if I'm getting really woo-woo. It's the yoga teacher in me coming out, but you do get that kind of sense that like, oh my gosh, this is so magical. A human is being born. Like, this is amazing. And yeah, I'm just, it's gratitude for me.
That's beautiful. We welcome all the woo. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I'd like to go ahead and wrap up and first invite you all to just let everyone know how they can keep up with the work that you're making, and any closing sentiments you have. If Cy, you'd like to start maybe?
Oh, okay. I mean, in closing, just thank you for letting me be a part of this. It's a total honor. We like, as independent filmmakers, we make these films and we're kind of in a vacuum, and then for people like, you guys to like reach out and show us love and give us a platform, like it means the world, and to like, let us come on and like talk about it and our art and our journey. I think it's really, really awesome. So thank you for that. And, I'm just honored to be here.
Thank you. And Isaac, I'm not sure, are you able to join us?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just want to echo what Cy was saying. That as well. It's a very beautiful thing to have all have all these people here on this space. And I'm very glad to be a part of it, honestly. I love seeing this, and I can't wait for the future, you know.
Thanks. I'll pass it back to Cydney and then Curtis.
I'm echoing the same thing, but I'm just really grateful. Thank you, Curtis, Sandeshay, New Orleans Film Society. I love being in community with you all. I love being in community with filmmakers, and it's just an honor to be here and be able to see like all this incredible work everyone is doing. And I can't wait to just like dive into it all. Thanks for holding space for the films and the participants.
Yes, I'll continue to echo that. Thank you first to all our 5 fantastic filmmakers for allowing us to show these films, and thank you South Summit, thank you New Orleans Film Society for providing us the space within South Summit and on Eventive to be able to highlight and platform these films. Really truly appreciate it, and thank you to my IMAS family and to our sustainability and development crew for helping conceive of the series and help put it together and get it out there. Really, truly appreciate it, all your hard work. And for those, like I said at the top, if you weren't here, please consider joining Indie Media Arts South. We meet monthly, we have working groups, we have a number of things and ways to participate. And so be part of the process and help us further continue and elevate the work of Southern filmmakers and media artists. And that's it. And thank you all again for being here and joining us.